For thousands of years, we've been under the impression the Bible was meant to be taken seriously. Finally, a new translation that'll change all that. This is Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible.
Reach out, touch faith.
Welcome to Season 5, Episode 10 of Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible with me, David Tuckman, coming to you from my house. Each week on the show, a guest joins me and tries to read a big chunk of my own personal translation of the Hebrew Bible while I make fun of it. Except for this time. On this special surprise episode, I'm joined by the cast and crew of the new movie The Vigil to read some Talmud passages about demons. That's right, Jewish demons, which also happen to be the topic of the movie. Also, I'd like to announce that the season finale, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for and which suddenly didn't happen, and will also be the last episode for quite some time since I'm finishing up the Torah and figuring out what to do next with this entire project. Stay tuned for that. There will be some news eventually of what this will turn into, but that season finale is coming soon, in a week, I think, a week from today. Anyway, here we go. I want to welcome to the show, to this episode of the podcast. It's a little bit different than usual. We have a few guests here. I want to welcome from the cast and crew of the new movie, The Vigil. We have the writer and director, Keith Thomas. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you.
We have the star who plays Yaakov, Dave Davis. You may have seen him in Logan, The Big Short, Season 2 of True Detective. Hi, Dave.
Hi, David. Season 1, actually.
Season 1. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. And then we have, she plays Sarah in the movie and is also an associate producer, Malky, and you may have seen her in Unorthodox. Please welcome Malky Goldman. Malky, hi, how are you?
Hi. Hello. Good.
I want to welcome you all to the show. So what I typically do is I ask my guests just a little bit about their religious background. We're going to, instead of reading the Torah like we usually do on the podcast, we are going to, hold on. Instead of reading the Torah like we usually do on the podcast, we are going to be reading a little bit from the Gemara. The Vigil is a new horror movie. It's a Jewish horror movie, which I think is something that's really exciting. I've seen it. It's really great. This was put together by IFC Films and Tamar Simon, so I want to thank her for arranging this. And I'm really excited about it because it is a horror movie that I think has a very authentic and real relationship to Judaism. And I think often we don't see movies or media where Judaism is represented authentically, but also it's a I think, a horror movie that works. So I'm really excited to talk about it, and it's a horror movie that's based in text. It's based in something that is real about the tradition of Judaism. So I want to talk about that, but I wanted to get a sense of your respective backgrounds. So Keith, why don't you start? What is your religious background and your relationship, let's say, to Bible?
So I was raised in the Reformed tradition. So the New York Jews, and who moved out to Denver, where I live now, and I had gone to shul, on and off, but high holidays, that sort of thing. It was confirmed, and then it wasn't until after college that I found an interest really more in studying. And so I went to Hebrew Union College, the Institute of Religion in New York City, where I did a master's in religious studies, which for me was really a great opportunity to kind of dive into just nerding out and reading a lot of stuff and getting into studying. I mean, for me, really, it was an opportunity to kind of both hone my skills in education, but also, which I thought I was going to do and I didn't end up doing, but also just a chance to explore stuff I liked, which ended up being monsters in the Torah is what I did my thesis on.
Really? We probably have a lot to talk about.
Stuff like that. What
were some of the monsters in the Torah that you wrote about?
So I wrote about the Nephilim. I wrote about Leviathan. Those were some of the big ones. And then obviously some of that stuff spilled over into Shadim and demons and and then more culturally non-biblical sort of entities like Divics and golems, and there's not that many actually to choose from. We don't have the pantheon that other faiths do, but it was fun.
Yeah. Where did the demon in this film is a Mazik? Where did that come from, or where
Yeah.
did the inspiration to write about that particular entity come from?
So it's interesting. It wasn't the I hate to diss on the Mazik, but the Mazik itself wasn't that fascinating. It was more the idea of I had seen Dybbuk's done to death.
Yeah.
And golems are clay people. And it was in the Shadim, it's just like they're so vague. It's just such a big, broad scope that in terms of the story I wanted to tell and what sort of demon, it was more about me just finding a name. And it was just kind of digging into the rabbinical literature and being like, hey, Mazik means destroyer. It hangs out in abandoned houses. People used to make bowls with like Aramaic rituals written on the inside of them to stop them. That's perfect. So unfortunately, it had zero description of what it was. So I had to kind of create the actual look of the thing and the way the thing functioned kind of from whole cloth. And that really came from both themes in the film, trying to make those flesh, but also just pulling from horror imagery.
Yeah, I think it was very effective, and I think what's great about it is, like as you described, it's kind of this blank canvas that you can build it on, and it felt like true to the literature. I think your education just definitely shines through in this, and I think it was really exciting. Just to me, it was more scary than a lot of horror typically is, which is kind of Catholic based, and I'm removed from it. And this was like, oh no, this could actually happen to me. Dave, I wanted to ask you, what is your religious background?
Yeah, so I was also raised Reform, and I was bar mitzvahed in New Orleans. And one of the things that I loved so much about, my religious education was we were really encouraged to question, and we were encouraged to come to our own conclusions. And that was one of the things that fascinated me so much about learning about the Hasidic community was I thought those were sort of principles of Judaism in a lot of ways. And I don't know if they necessarily span the full gamut of the way our religion is expressed throughout all the communities. And, I always really connected with the idea of the shattered universe. I'm sure you can remind me of the word for it, and the Jews' responsibility, gathering the shards and putting it back together. And I always thought that was like a really beautiful sentiment, because it's not just a Jewish responsibility; it's a human responsibility. And in my way, that was part of what this film opened up for me, was bridging this gap to a community that I didn't know prior to the film, and I surely had not met many people from, and I think is very misrepresented in media.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, this was really an incredible opportunity to bring that story to a wider audience and to share that world with people who wouldn't be exposed to it. And we took so much care to do so authentically, and to bring the respect to that community necessary. And also, it's a really wonderful thing to be able to represent people that don't have that much representation. And, as a Jew, that was really a thrilling privilege.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's surprising that you say that you had so little experience with that particular community, because one of the things that struck me about your performance was how authentic and how real it felt. I think, it's often that you see representation of Orthodox Jews or even Haredi or Hasidic Jews on screen, and they feel like somebody acting. It doesn't really feel like the person is truly embodying that person. And it felt like you nailed it. The way that you switch from Yiddish to English all the time, depending on your character's state of mind, just your physicality, it really felt real and authentic. Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to get that so right?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. And, from the beginning, Keith and I talked a lot about it, and he gave me a number of different source materials to kind of dig into. And I did some research on my own, just trying to absorb anything I could, And even before I had the role, just in the audition process, I was trying to speak to people from various backgrounds. And I would end up talking to a lot of people from Israel or from adjacent communities. And it wasn't until I got to New York and I met Malky, and she was really instrumental in introducing me to her friends. And you know, I always say that it was so important to me to not be doing an imitation of something, but to find organically where Yaakov comes from. And that wasn't really possible until I met real people whose experiences mimic that of Yaakov's, or Yaakov's mimics their experience. And that allowed me to really understand Yaakov as a person and realize where the similarities are, because the differences are sort of obvious at surface level. But the similarities, at the end of the day, we're all going through the same stuff. We're all dealing with grief. We're all dealing with mental health. We're all dealing with our personal relationship to faith and to family, and how we interpret our family's concepts about things and create our own concepts about things. And a lot of that was listening over and over again to accents and trying to internalize it so that it was Yaakov's voice and not an imitation. And a lot of that was just talking to people and understanding how they look at the world and how they feel about the world, and just trying to, you know, come up with something that made sense to me. Yeah. And I'm just so thrilled that it's connected with so many people, and that, you know, Malky would often, sometimes we'd be on set and she would go, Dave, that sounded a little Russian. So, you know, it was really key to have her there the whole way. At times I'd go, hey, do you mind repeating that 10 times rapid fire? Or I would repeat something a bunch until I got it right, and we'd be saying it together almost like a Meisner exercise. It was a really incredible challenge and really a lot of fun to do.
Well, it came out wonderfully. Malky, can you talk a little bit about your background?
Yes. So I grew up in Jerusalem in a very, very Hasidic family in Mea Shearim, literally. Mm-hmm. And my relationship to religiosity is everything to the age of 19. But my knowledge is not much because, you know, they didn't really believe in women studying Torah or Gemara. So we did not dig into any of these kind of things. I think us women weren't smart enough for that. But I did have, exactly, you know, maybe they were afraid we'll find out they call us the demons and shades him. Who knows? But then I had two brothers. I had 8 brothers, but 2 of them were very close in age. And I would study with them sometimes, and they would tell me all the stories about, you know, a little bit about Gomorrah and this and that. But officially through school, none of it. Mm-hmm. Only how to be a good Jewish woman, and I failed.
Oh, well, I mean, you worked on, I think, helping to create a Jewish world in this film. You, from what I understand, you were instrumental in trying to help make sure that it did feel authentic and creating that authenticity. What was it like being a part of making sort of this facsimile of a world that you, to a certain extent, left?
It was just a real pleasure. It was such a privilege because, you know, sometimes you're hired on a set as an actor or as an, you know, any sort of like a consultant, and you think that these people want to represent who you are and where you come from, and you get excited, and then you come to set and all they want to know is, can we do this and not get shit from the world because this is what we see and how we want to present it. Mm-hmm. But this project was just completely different. I'm not saying it's always like this. I'm just saying often like this. But this project, the way it started was, let's do this. And let's do this really good. And we'll make it a real authentic film. And all of the horror fans will be like, this is the best horror film in the world. And all of the Hasidic people will be like, oh, this is the best Hasidic film. And all of the ex-Hasidim will be like, this is what happened. I just felt that there was just Keith and Dave and the producer. I mean, everyone and the production, the producers, everyone was Rafi. So eager to make this correct and ask questions and listen to you. And I always love to say this. there was a situation where the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a painting of him on the wall next to the Bobova Rebbe, but hey, this cannot happen in a Hasidic family. So they went even that far. It was just like, let's make this, we're not going to get away with anything. They didn't try to pass by anything. So it just felt good. So good and exciting. And we also all, since day one, were just like looking at each other. Keith, we did it behind your back. And we were like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be something special.
Yeah, I think all of that, using it's a movie that to me I think really embraces the iconography and the tradition that it's a part of. It's not necessarily just using it; it's really engaging in it in a way that really lets the horror pull through. I think part of what made it work was, to your point, even to the pictures on the walls. It felt like this is a real Jewish home. This is what this woman would have on the wall. This is what that family would have. And I think even its engagement with Jewish. I'm trying to think of the word, in not necessarily iconography, or I'll just to say it outright. I think this had one of the best uses of tefillin on film that I've ever seen, in a way that's not explained in any way, which I really appreciated, because it's not taking the time to explain to the audience what it is. It's just embracing this kind of strange aspect of Judaism, but is one of the most badass tefillin scenes I've ever seen. So that was really wonderful to see.
And that was actually a very interesting point on set, because there were various opinions about how tefillin is tied. Mm-hmm. And so that was yes. That was even another thing that we were doing the research, and my training comes from Shakespeare, and there's often different versions of a line. Mm-hmm. So I like to learn all the versions, and then you pick what you connect with, and you pick what works best for that production. And it was sort of like that, because it was, okay, well, this is one way to tie tefillin, this is another way, this is another way. And then finally, we were able to settle on, this is the way that Yaakov ties tefillin. And that was very important to me, that it wasn't just a prop, that it was something I felt connected to and knew how to tie myself. And, that it was, again, an organic experience and not just a replica.
Yeah, no, I think it really felt real. With that in mind, I want to turn to text for a little bit. I hope that's okay. This is actually something that I think Keith referenced to, but we're going to read a little bit of Gemara. This is my translation of just a part of the Gemara that has to do with demons, with the mazik. So I was wondering if you could help me read it. So typically Gemara, I think, to describe it, or Talmud to people who might not necessarily be familiar with it in the audience, it's a corpus of Jewish law that's really just an endless debate and people going back and forth and talking. So I was wondering if you would be open to it, if each of you would take a speaking role and read this bit with me. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay. So this is Brachot, which is the first piece of the Talmud, or book, or tractate, however you want to translate it, page 3b, or Gimel Alman Bet. So Keith, why don't you take it away?
Sure. The rabbi said there are 3 reasons you can't hang out in ruins. First of all, people might think you're there to see a prostitute. Second, the ruins could collapse on you. Third, there could be demons there.
Okay. But why did the rabbis need to bring up the prostitutes? Isn't avoiding ruins collapsing on you enough?
They were worried you might think you could go into one of those newer, structurally sound ruins.
Why couldn't they just say it's because of demons?
To make sure 2 people don't go into ruins together, since demons only attack people when they're alone.
Right. But if 2 people go in together, they can't possibly be seeing a prostitute. So shouldn't that be enough?
Not if they're the kind of guys who do that sort of thing.
I'd buy that.
Wait. Okay. So,
those
so
guys.
why do we even need to mention that the ruins might collapse? Shouldn't the demons and the possibility of seeing a sex worker keep people away?
We need to make it clear that even 2 upstanding, moral people who would never see a sex worker can't go into ruins.
So why do we need to mention demons? Isn't the sex worker worry and the collapse enough?
We have to mention the demons in case 2 good men go into a brand new, fresh ruin.
Wait. I thought we agreed that demons only go after people when they're alone. So two people should be fine.
Yeah, but this is one of those new haunted ruins. On the other hand, you could say it's a guy by himself going into a new ruin in a field. Since everybody knows women never go into fields, he's got to be on the lookout for demons.
So, end scene.
Cut. Let's do it again, guys. One for safety.
Yeah.
That brought me right back to Dr. Coleman, Keith.
Oh my god.
So do you have any thoughts on that section of the Talmud?
I think it's interesting. So number one, obviously it has a direct kind of sort of connection to this Mazik character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word
In
here
that
in the Aramaic is mazikin, but I
is
translated.
right.
Yeah.
So, you've got this sort of not going into ruins. And I remember reading about the Mazik when I was just doing a little bit of study, and it was right. There was just this idea that you don't go in there because it could be dangerous, because could be a Mazik. And it made sense to me because obviously you don't want to go hang out in ruins because, right, that's a ruin for a reason. The idea of, making up some sort of, it's the same reason why, there's stories in every culture, I think, of something in the water. Don't go by the edge of that pond. There's something in there, or, it's keeping people safe in a way of, this is a dangerous thing. Try not to do it. And, people don't always listen to reason. So sometimes you have to create something to make sure they don't go, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a ruin, I'll be fine. And then they're like, no, there's a Mazik in there. So then they won't go.
Mm-hmm. I just like the idea of new ruins that are the fresh ruins that aren't bad yet, that aren't dangerous yet.
Yeah, you wonder if that's from war or what they're meaning. If it's like the ruins of something that were just ancient and toppled over versus, something that, a cart crashed into and made a new ruin.
Mm-hmm. I think of like a recently abandoned house too, or something where it's, people just don't go there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that women don't go to fields.
Obviously.
Yes.
What's a field, guys? Please tell me. Teach me. It's just so crazy to read this because it reminds me of when I try to make a point when I'm angry and I'm like, it is just like when you spill hot water on my leg and someone is like, did I ever spill hot water on your leg? No, but why did you, it just becomes all about the hot water. That's not the point. But it's just like, I think all matter is just like this. And as my friend was once saying, it feels like it's just like feeling time, with all these like, yeah. But I mean, I'm sorry to do this, but I just got so excited. I just had an epiphany because I called my father and I asked him, I was like, can you tell me something about demons, Mazikim, Shadim, any of them? And I just wanted to hear what he's going to say. And he didn't want to get into it. He's like, we don't believe in it. The Rambam says that whoever believes in Mazikim and Shadim is just people who can agree. They can come to just beneath them to understand that they don't understand, to admit that they don't understand, blah, blah, blah. But now seeing it with all of these prostitutes, I'm like, oh my God, maybe I made them so uncomfortable. What is he going to tell me? They just...
I like that you can just know who doesn't, like which men don't go to see sex workers. It's just well known. Would it be all right if we read one more from Brachot? It's just another page.
Sure.
Sure.
All right. So this is it's not as much of a conversation. It's more just people sharing some things and stating opinions. Why don't we keep the same casting for this?
Okay. So people are saying that Abba Binyamin says, if the eye could truly see, no one alive could handle how many demons there are.
Abaye says there are more of them than there are of us, and they tower over us like mounds of dirt around a large pit.
Ravuna says we all have 1,000 demons to our right and 10,000 to our left.
Rava says, when there are too many people at shul, that's demons. When your knees are tired, demons. You know how sometimes your clothes wear out for no reason? You were rubbing against demons. And when your feet hurt, you got it, demons.
Well, if you really want to know, you put some ashes around your bed at night. In the morning, it'll look like chicken prints. That's demons.
If you want to see demons, there's what you do. Get the afterbirth of a firstborn female black cat born to a firstborn female black cat, burn it, gringe it up, and rub it in
Pass.
rub it in your eyes, then you'll see them. But you have to make sure the demons don't steal it from you. Take the ground oh my god. Take the ground cat afterbirth ashes and put them in an iron tube, sealed, real tight with an iron with an iron seal, so it doesn't hurt you. Abaya's son BV did this once and he got hurt, but the rabbis prayed for him, so he got better.
All right, end scene.
I'm sorry, I tried so hard.
That was great.
You gotta really want to see a demon.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Thank God I don't have a female cat.
Especially after what happened with BV, you really.
Yeah, it's very complicated that you have to get the afterbirth, and that you're grinding that up, and then you're burning that, and then putting the ashes. Here's the thing though. How do we even know it doesn't work? Who's tried that? That's so complicated that maybe that works. I mean, I can't imagine anyone's actually done that.
Yeah,
my question
Please
is
don't
too,
try.
because it has to be the first female born, and yet you're using the afterbirth. So have we done an ultrasound on the mother?
That's a really good point. That's probably most of the time why it doesn't work.
But I do love the idea, and I countered all that stuff of demons to the left of you, demons to the right sort of idea. It's a very this is a sort of tangential reference, but in a lot of horror fiction, this is a very common sort of idea. There's a H.P. Lovecraft story in which a man invents a machine that allows it creates vibrations in a room, and if you stand in the room where those vibrations, this kind of sound is taking place, you can see things in the air that exist all around us that we have no idea about. And of course, it being an H.P. Lovecraft story, anyone who sees them goes insane if they're around them long enough. But this is very similar, this sort of idea of these things are just all around us all the time. And we put some of this stuff is in the Vigil in a particular sequence at the kind of in towards the end of the second act, where Yaakov is in the basement and he encounters a videotape, and on that videotape is this sort of explanation of these demons and where they come from and what they are, and kind of all those sort of descriptions of the demon makes you rub your rub your pants or trip or whatever is going on, as they're animals. They're not this sort of Christian conception of these sort of things that are after your soul to drag you down to hell, and this sort of concept. They're much more like just invisible big cats or something that are harassing you.
Yeah, isn't there a theory that demons mazikim are actually your sin? Like every time you sin, you create a bad angel. Every time you do a good, you create a good angel. But the bad angels, they come to you at night and they scare you and they make noises and create stuff. And those are the demons, but they look like animals, like they don't come in the form of a person. Yeah.
Right. They have like chicken. Right. There's the whole chicken thing with them. And I also heard a lot of stories when I was researching the Vigil and talking to rabbis just about, covering any bowl or glass of water that was exposed, because you want to cover it, because in the morning there could be demons chilling on the on the surface of the water, and you don't want to drink that because then you'll be drinking some of them. So again, it's this very sort of different concept of animal. They're like animals, they're like bugs, they're nuisances. But if they piled up, or if you ran into a really big one, it could be a problem.
You're in trouble. I remember hearing when I was younger that like kind of the modernizing take on it, that these rabbis were so learned that what they were describing wasn't really demons, they were inventing germ theory. So there are these millions of microbes flying through the air all the time, and that's what's hurting us and making us sick, and covering up water to prevent it from bacteria from getting in. And then I was like, oh, okay, that sort of worked.
Right. Yeah, the very sort of scientific approach to it, which again makes sense. It's the same with the Mazik in the abandoned house. Like, the floor could be rotten. Don't bother going in there. And some knucklehead is still going to try to go. So it's like, well, there's a Mazik in there too. So
yeah,
that's even better reason.
And a prostitute.
All right, a prostitute. Right, they're hanging out. The Mazik and the prostitute. That's a movie. It's like a.
Yeah.
It's like twins.
Yeah.
But with a Mazik and a prostitute.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
I'm glad I could inspire the next project. Well, that's
All right, Malky, I'll be the prostitute. You be the Mazik.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
You were good in this on the phone when things got creepy. I think that's it. That's all the readings I have for you. I want to thank you all for being on the show. And could you let the audience know where they can check you out online and where they can watch the Vigil?
Yeah, I can tell you about the Vigil. It is available now. It's in theaters in select cities where theaters are open, and you can watch movies like this. And it's also on kind of all your streaming platforms in terms of where you rent movies. So if it's on demand via cable or through Amazon or any sort of outlet that you use to rent movies online and stream, particularly in these pandemic days, it should be there.
Great. So thank you again. Thank you, Keith, Malky, and Dave for being on the show. Is there anything either of you want to leave our audience with?
Watch this movie with the lights out. Don't watch it alone. And enjoy.
Excellent.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. As always, you can find the podcast on omgwtfbible.com. We're on Twitter. That's our handle. On Facebook at omgbible. Instagram, omgwtfbible. And you can just send me an email if you want at omgwtfbible@gmail.com. Please, please, please rate and review the show on iTunes, even though we're closing down for a little while. If you like the show, here's something you can do. Write a review about it, and then burn it. Rub the ashes in your eyes, and then take the ashes and then put them in an iron cylinder sealed with an iron seal. And then you'll be able to see bad reviewers, I think. But if you see them, it'll make you go crazy. So maybe don't do that. Anyway, as always, I want to thank you so much for listening. And please be sure to join us next week for the last episode in a while.